I'm Isaiah Williams, and today I'll be discussing how the 2008 Great Recession negatively affected the general public's relationship with Wall Street. Leading up to the 2008 crash, the stock market was doing extremely well and hit a pre-crash high on October 9th, 2007 at 14,164.53 points. At the same time, the housing market was skyrocketing, boosted by the subprime mortgage loan business. With record low interest rates, many more people were in the market to buy houses, leading to continuous growth. However, as the number of loans dished out increased, the loan companies needed buyers, and the issue with Wall Street's treatment of subprime mortgage loans began to unravel. First, a subprime mortgage is given to borrowers with low credit ratings. The loan is typically very risky with high interest rates leading to potentially high returns. Yet, to combat this, the loan companies sold the loans in bundles to Wall Street, putting the financial liability completely on a different player, incentivizing dishing out as many loans as possible. However, when Freddie Mac, a large investment company, said they would no longer purchase risky subprime mortgages or mortgage-related securities, the end of the large gain in subprime mortgage loans was set. Mortgage companies like New Century Financial and American Home Mortgage Investment Corp. went bankrupt, hinting towards a major financial recession in the coming months. In December 2007, the market began to crash. The Dow fell to just 6,547 points, nearly down 8,000 points from its high. At the same time, the net worth of American households and nonprofits declined by more than 20% from a high of $69 trillion to $55 trillion. The problem was further demonstrated when Standard & Poor's and Moody's credit rating services both announced that their intention to reduce the ratings on more than 100 bonds backed by subprime mortgages, causing housing prices to plummet. Unemployment skyrocketed to a peak of 10%, while the GDP fell 4.3%. To make matters worse, 3 million households were foreclosed during the recession, leading to long-term effects for the general public. Wall Street was another story. The largest companies took huge financial hits. In 2008, investment banking giant Bear Stearns collapsed after attributing its financial troubles to investments in subprime mortgages, and its assets were acquired by JP Morgan Chase. A few months later, financial behemoth Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy for similar reasons, creating the largest bankruptcy filing in U.S. history. Seeing the potentially catastrophic impacts of more huge companies going under, to stop the bleeding, the Feds took action. To prevent more companies from going bankrupt, the Fed cut interest rates, lent money, and bought assets to keep the biggest companies afloat. AIG, a large investment firm, was lent $85 billion, and to mobilize more money, President Bush approved the Troubled Asset Relief Program. The large banks were essentially bailed out by the government, and yet no CEOs were punished, and bonuses were paid with large sums of money the banks were receiving. Car companies were also bailed out, but the CEOs were fired and companies were looked down upon, even though they did not cause the problem. Later, the Dodd-Frank Act, which was signed into law by President Obama in 2010, was designed to restore at least some of the United States government's regulatory power over the financial industry in order to prevent the same thing from happening again. People were helped individually as well. The Economic Stimulus Act provided taxpayers with rebates from $600 to $1,200, which encouraged people to spend, in combination with reduced taxes and increased loan limits for federal home loan programs. But the focus was on how the government handled Wall Street. In the end, the federal government enacted roughly $1.8 trillion of fiscal stimulants and other economic support. The general public saw the cause of the recession as Wall Street's fault, and their involvement in creating the housing bubble and crash. Because of the ignorance of Wall Street, many people were upset and even more lost trust with the banks and investment firms. When the Feds bailed out companies and operations continued fairly normally, the public's outrage only grew. A 2018 study by the Federal Reserve Board found that the crisis cost every single American approximately $70,000, and even though some help was directed at the people, the banks received the largest boost. The bailouts might have been the most economical option. However, the people felt the outcome was unfair. As the economy started to get back on its feet, the people still felt unsatisfied, leading to movements like Occupy Wall Street, calling for economic equality. Despite the setback to the economy and the effect on the general population, the only positive to come out of the Great Recession was experience. With the Dodd-Frank Act regulation could take place, and the Fed understands the importance of Keynesian spending. And as the economy is beginning to crawl its way out of another recession due to the coronavirus, the Fed can take what it learned from 2008 and use it to help now. The trust in Wall Street is slowly growing, and the crash from the coronavirus is not due to a failure from Wall Street, so the trust can continue to grow. As time goes on, hopefully the country can learn from previous failures and continue to adapt to prevent or at least successfully mitigate recessions in the future.